We are beginning tonight's Shiur in the beginning of Siman Kuf Mem Daled. We are on page 54. Siman Kuf Mem Daled is Shalo Ledalig B'Torah Me'inyan Le'inyan V'Dinei HaHaftorah. Not to skip around in the Torah from one topic to another topic. And the halachos of the Haftorah. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph Medalgin Ba'Novi Ve'ein Medalgin Ba'Torah Mi'Parsha Zu L'Parsha Acheres. You could skip around the Novi if you think about some Haftorahs like Shabbos Shuvah. We skip around in the Novi, that's allowed, but you're not allowed to skip around in the Torah from one Parsha to another Parsha. But, says the Shulchan Aruch, V'hani mili b'shnei inyanim. That's only if you want to switch around from one topic to a different topic. That's a problem. The chayshina shemet tispalbel das hashomim. We're worried that those who are listening are going to get confused. Aval b'chad inyana. But even within the Torah, if it's in one topic, Higon, for example, acharemos v'ach ba'asor shekohen gadol koreb yom kippurim. On Yom Kippur, the kohen gadol would lay in Parshas Acharemos, and then he would switch to ach ba'asor, which is the Parshas Emor. So then medalgin, then we can skip around. So the Mechaber says that another you could skip stam, and when it comes to Torah, you can't skip if it is two topics. But if it's one topic, then you are allowed to skip. V'hu shalo yikra al peh. This is assuming that you don't read it by heart. Sha'oso likro shalo min aksav afilu teva echas. Because you're not allowed to read not from the ksav even one word, as we have seen previously. That's a funny line a little bit in the Mechaber. The Mishna Berura will explain like why that's coming in over here. The Mechaber is just saying that in the Torah, within one inyan, you're allowed to skip. Why is he adding in? As long as you don't read it by heart. So we'll explain that shortly in Mirza Hashem. And then the Mechaber continues and says, Ubanovi medalgin afilu b'shnei inyanim. So even though we just said by Torah you can only skip within the same topic, by Navi, as we know, it's clearly more lenient. You're allowed to skip even from one topic to another topic. V'hu shelo yishe bedilug be'inyan sheyamdu atzibur b'shtika. The only thing is that when you're skipping around in Navi, you don't want the tzibur standing there quietly, so it's only if you can skip to the second point while the translator is still translating, so then it's okay. They're not standing b'shtika. That would not be considered tircha l'tzibura, that would be mutter. V'hani mili b'navi echa. This whole conversation is within one sefer of Navi. Aval me'navi le'navi ein medalgin, but you can't skip from one sefer of Navi to another sefer of Navi. However, u'b'treyasar medalgin me'navi le'navi. However, treyasar, which is 12 small Naviim, they're considered really like one Navi, and there you can skip around from one Navi to another Navi. But you're not allowed to go backwards from the end to the beginning. We'll see in the Mishna Berura exactly what that means. Let's see the Mishna Berura beginning in Sivkot and Aleph on the first point of the Mechaber, that medalgin ba'navi, that you can skip around in a Navi. Hainu lefi mashi yodua. This is based on what we know. The Medina ein al Haftorah b'navi psukim yuchadim. As opposed to the parsha, there's a set parsha that we must read each week. When it comes to Haftorah, we don't have set psukim. Rak shetzarech lios me'en hasedra. Just the psukim that you're going to read have to connect somehow to the parsha, like we'll see later in So Siman Tov Chav Ches Ba'ago. Vashmeina, and Mechaber is teaching over here the mutter lahamaftir b'navi ledalig me parsha zu parsha acheres. Memela, since it's not one set parsha that you must read, it just has to be on the topic of the laning that you did in the Torah. So in the Navi you can switch from one parsha to another parsha. V'chein haminug bekama haftoros shemosifen lahem psukim me parshas acheros, and that is in fact our minug, that in some haftoros we do add on psukim from other parshios. Sivkot Bais ve'ein medalgin b'Torah. The Mechaber then said, we do not skip in the Torah from one parsha to another parsha if it is two inyanim. Says the Mishna Berura, hainu b'sheni v'chamishi. We're talking over here in the Mechaber on Mondays and Thursdays. D'tzarich midina likro rak asara psukim l'tosa gavri. On Monday and Thursday, as we've discussed in the past, you only need to read 10 psukim, 3 aliyos. O b'yom tov the tzarech likros hey gavri, or in Yom where you read 5 aliyos ein likrosam lechatchila b'dilag rak haseder. In these cases, the Mechaber is discussing you shouldn't skip around. You should read it in order. The Sha'ar Tzion points out in Os Aleph why are we addressing Dafka Monday and Thursday and Yom Tov. The b'shachris b'Shabbos lo shayach haydina. This din is not shayach on Shabbos morning. The tzarech likros kol haseder. It's only shayach to skip around, like we just saw by Navi. You don't have to read specific parshios. It has to be just similar to the topic that you learned in the Torah. So it's shayach to talk about skipping around. But over here on Shabbos morning, we lay in the whole parsha, so you can't skip around, you have to read everything. Monday and Thursday, as the Mishna Berura pointed out, the inyan is just to have 10 psukim, but you're not necessarily bound by a specific 10 psukim, so maybe there you could skip around. So there we're saying if it's going to be in 2 topics, you can't skip around on a Monday and Thursday where it would be shayach. But Zod Sha'ar Tzion on Shabbos, it's not even shayach to get this whole discussion started, because you must read the whole parsha. But then the Chavetz Chaim writes in the Sha'ar Tzion, V'ulai shayach gam al shachris. Maybe it's shayach to skip around even by shachris. How so? Shelo yedalig eze psukim afilu al manas lasor lahashlimam achakach. Maybe you would have thought that you could skip around in the parsha and then go backwards. We know that the order is not ma'akeh by Kriyas Torah. That we saw previously, because we saw halacha that if you skip the pasuk after learning, you go back to read that pasuk and 2 other psukim. So the order is not ma'akeh. So I would have thought it's shayach to skip around Shabbos morning also. You'll read the whole parsha. You'll just skip later on, and you'll come back and you'll be mashlim what you missed. So even though the Sha'ar Tzion starts off and says it's not shayach on Shabbos morning, then he says maybe it is shayach on Shabbos morning as well, in the way he just explained. Continues the Mishna Berura Vaitus of Koton Gimel, the reason why we said that in 2 inyonim in Torah you should not skip around the Shema Tisbalbel. Says the Mishna Berura, Lefisha divrei Torah divrei asharos va'anoshim u'mitzvos. So why we worry Shema Tisbalbel by Torah, skipping from inyan to inyan and not by Navi? Because by Torah it's much more crucial that everyone hears the laning, because in Divrei Torah there are warnings about what not to do, va'anoshim and punishments and mitzvahs that we must do. V'tzaro she'ikonsu b'leiv hashomim. You have to be focused. It has to enter the heart of those who are listening. Ukesha'adam yotzei mishita l'shita eino noach le'hizbonin. The person's jumping around from line to line, so he's not able to concentrate properly, and it might throw him off. Masha'enke by Navi is different. There aren't really mitzvahs there, and there aren't really punishments for Averos there, and therefore it is less crucial that a person shouldn't get thrown off, and therefore the halacha of skipping around is more lenient by the Navi. Says the Mishna Berura Vaitus of Kotan Dalid, the example we gave where you're allowed to skip around in the Torah within one inyan was in Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol reads, Acharemos v'ach ba'asor, Rotzalomar afal pi sheish hefsek rab b'neim, even though there's a nice size break between these 2 parshios. Shezeh beparsha acharei, v'zeh beparshas emor. One is in Parshas Acharemos, and one is in Parshas Emor, so it's a couple of parshios away. Afilu hachi, even so, Zok the Mishna Berura, Kevan de tarvayu me inyan Yom HaKippurim, since they're both on the topic of Yom Kippur, mutter ledalig v'lekrosam yachad, you are allowed to skip from one to the other and read them together as one laning. V'hu adin mashen ohogim b'tainis sivur k'shekaron v'yichal v'parshas kisisa shemedalgin lepsalucha v'hainu gam ke mitam shem inyan echad. If you look in the Siddurim of the Chubashim, you'll see that every fast day when we lay, we also are skipping within Parshas Kisisa. So there is the same idea. It's one inyan, it's not too far apart, and therefore it is permissible as well, and that is our custom. Sekatan hey v'hu shelo yikra. So this was the funny line of the Mechaber. The Mechaber says, v'hu shelo yikra, as long as you don't read it by heart, because you can't read even one word by heart. It says in Mishna Berura, Rotzalomar. What does it mean to say? Dr. Mishna Berura, what it means to say is the following. The lakachet tiru ledalig. That's why they allowed you to skip in the Torah within one topic. V'liglol ha-sefer la-parsha ashniya, to roll the Sefer Torah to the second parsha. After who minkar milsa, even though it's clearly recognizable that you're skipping, kedei shelo yavo likra ashniya balpet, to prevent the person reading it by heart. V'zeh aser, that's not allowed. So in order to prevent reading it by heart, that's why we allow you to roll the Sefer Torah to the second parsha. Sekatan vav shelo yisha, we said that when you are skipping by Navi, you should not pause enough time that people should be standing there silently. Says the Mishna Berura, bizmaneim hoyu regilim l'targim bein pasuk l'pasuk. In the olden days, they would translate every pasuk. V'ashmeina, the Mechaber is telling us, shiu krovim ha'inyonim zel hazeh. The 2 parshios that you're skipping from one to the other have to be close enough, kol kach, that while the translator is still translating, you can switch from one parsha to the other. You should do it while he's still speaking, so there shouldn't be any silence. It's not proper kavalat tzibur. They should be standing around silently, waiting for you to finish the rolling, and therefore that's the limit. If you can get to the other parsha while he's still translating that pasuk that you read last, that would be permissible. The kosu ha-posuk and the posuk right, the bizmanenu nowadays, she'ein regilin l'tagim nami shari. Nowadays that we don't translate, it's also mutter. Kevan shekol haftoros ksuvim bizmanenu bekuntrus bin atzman. Nowadays, says the Chavetz Chaim, each haftorah is written in its own kuntras. O b'chumashim, or they're in chumashim, halo yochol lesamein ulachapes maher kol hapsukim asher yochim la'aftar hazu. Think about, you have a Tanakh, so you put a marker in where you're picking up, you just flip the page and you get to the next page that you want, and therefore nowadays it's absolutely not a problem. There's no translator, we're not rolling anything, so therefore you're just flipping, assuming you don't have a cloth, so then it's not a problem as well. The tzibur won't be standing around quietly waiting for you, because you're doing it in a half a second, and therefore that would be permissible as well. The Mishna Berura ends off of Kotan Vav and writes, according to this logic that we could just flip the page from one sefer to another sefer, so you can switch from Navi to Navi as well. But even if they're very far apart from each other, it doesn't take any longer to flip 3 pages than to flip 40 pages. So therefore, it says in Mishna Berura nowadays that they're written in a Chumash, in a Tanakh, or a Kuntras, so that would be very lenient. Says the Mishna Berura Vaitis of Kotan Zayin, Ein Medalgin. The Mechaber had said, May Navi L'Navi, besides the heter that we just saw in general, in the olden days, May Navi L'Navi was not allowed. The Ika Teiruf Hadas B'Yosir Midai, that would be too confusing. V'davka B'Shnei Inyanim, Davka going from Navi to Navi, on 2 topics. But if it's within one topic, you would be allowed to skip there as well. By Trey Asar, we said you could skip Navi L'Navi, Sivkot N'Ches. Shem Chashuvim K'Navi Echad L'Inyan Zeh. That's considered one Navi. All 12 are considered like one Navi L'Gabe this Inyan. Mipnei Shem Ketzarim, because they're very short. L'Tchilaso, Sivkot N'Tes, the Mechaber said as long as you don't go backwards, May Sofa Sever L'Tchilaso. You can't be going backwards, so you're reading it out of order. Even if they're nearby, you can't go from the later part to the earlier part. Now, what exactly is this talking about? We're being a little vague. So here the Mishna Berura brings down a machlokas. On this is in fact a machlokas haposkim. Yesh omrim, there are those who say that dafka min navi l'navi ein medalgin bazeh. Dafka from one navi to another navi, we don't skip backwards. Even in Treyasar, we said you can skip from Navi L'Navi, it's only going forward, you can't skip backwards Navi L'Navi in Treyasar. But if you're within the same sefer of Navi, then you could go backwards from Perek Chav to Perek Zayin. That wouldn't be a problem going backwards within one Navi. That's sheet number 1. If they're nearby, and again, if you're rolling it, the tzibur won't have to wait around the b'shtika, so then it would be okay to go back within the same sefer, but not make sefer lo sefer even in Treyasar. These Achronim, Magen Avram, the El Rabba, they say that you can't go l'mafreya even within one Navi. Not only may Navi Navi and Treyasar can't go backwards, even within one Navi you can't go backwards. The Pri Megadim does lean to say that within one topic, in one Navi, you would be allowed to go backwards out of order. Says the Mechaber Vayter Sebez. Nohagin b'Shabbos sheyesh bo chasan lomar achar haftoras hashavua. The minhag is that when there is a chasan in the shul, to read after the haftorah of the week, shnayim o shlosha psukim me'haftorah sos asis. So there is a minhag to read after the regular haftorah. If there's a chasan there, 2 or 3 psukim from the haftorah of sos asis, which talks about a chasan. And the Ramah sticks in the middle over there. What is the lashon of the haftorah? Yesh omrim shu milashon ein maftirin achara pesach. By Pesach we say ein maftirin achara pesach avikomen she'enyano siluk. The lashon of maftirin of haftorah is a lashon of removal. Kolomar means to say siluk tefillah shachars. Haftorah is the end, the removal of Tefillah Shachars. That's why it's called the Haftorah. So the Ramah sticks that into the Mechaber, but in the Mechaber he says one point, and that is when there's a chasan in shul, there is a minhag to lay in the regular Haftorah of the week and to add 2 or 3 psukim from the Haftorah of Sos Asis, which is appropriate for a chasan. Then the Mechaber says, Ukeshachal Rosh Chodesh b'Shabbos ubiyom Aleph. When Rosh Chodesh falls out on Shabbos and Sunday, so then Kishachar Rosh Chodesh b'Shabbos ubiyom Aleph. Achar shemaftirin haftorah b'Shabbos. After we read the haftorah of the Shabbos, Omrim pasuk rishon upasuk achron me'haftoras v'yomer lo Yehonasan mocha chodesh. So a similar idea after you read the regular haftorah, which our minhag is to read the haftorah of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. But if there's a minhag to read regular Shabbos haftorah or Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, in addition you would add on at the end a couple of psukim, the first and last pasuk from the Haftorah of Machar Chodesh, which is for when Shabbos is the day before Rosh Chodesh, when Rosh Chodesh is Sunday. So ve'ein limchos b'yodam. This is the minhag, and one should not protest against them. We don't do this, but l'maisa, if you look in the Chumashim, they say yesh no hagim to add the first and last pasuk from the Mechaber over here. Our minhag, at least over here, is that we don't do that. V'ayin lekamam b'simin tov chav hey sebeis u'beso simin tov chav ches heach no hagim. So look later on to see exactly how we are knowing. Let's see the Mishna Berura Sefkatan Yud. Sifkatan Yud is going on the first point when there's a mechaber, when there's a chasan. The mechaber said that we add on psukim of the haftorah of the chasan. V'tama minug. The reason for this custom is after kama pa'amim misrami shumi navi l'navi. Even though many times it's going to come out that the chasan's haftorah sos asis is not the same sefer of navi that you're reading that week. Mishum debimei Talmud hayu kol asvarim nichtavim begiloyum. That's because in the times of the Gemara, all the svarim were written in a scroll. Vayutzrichin lishos bagalila. Like we said before, the reason we have a problem skipping Meinavi Lanavi is rolling. That was the delay. Aval but once again, for us nowadays, Sha'aftoras nechtavim b'kuntresim, with haftoras are written in these kuntresim. Oh, b'chumashim, or the chumashim, where we take a Tanakh, halo yochol laso siman sheim tzemahel. Like we said before, you're able to quickly switch from one Navi to another Navi, and therefore switching from the regular haftorah of the Shabbos to the chasan's haftorah sos asis would not be any kind of delay, and therefore there are those who are knowing this way. Sivkatan Yud Aleph, that is going on the next case of the Mechaber, where the Mechaber says if Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos Sunday, so after you read the Haftorah of the Shabbos, you will read the first pasuk and last pasuk of the Haftorah of when Rosh Chodesh is on Sunday, which is Mochar Chodesh. Lezecher shelo hu Rosh Chodesh. That says a zecher that tomorrow on Sunday will be Rosh Chodesh. The Ramah ended off by telling us to look later on. So it says in Mishna Berura v'ayin lekamon simit tov chav hey hainu desham nisbar de kayom einu hagim ledalig minavi lenavi klal. He says that nowadays the minhag is not to skip from Navi to Navi at all, even though we pointed out Lamaisa, we do skip around Minavi Navi. Just look at Shabbos Shuvo, we do skip around from one Navi to another Navi. I believe those are in Treyasar, so it could be that's not against what the Mishna Berura is quoting from later on. Says the Mechaber Vayter and Siv Gimel, Ein gololin Sefer Torah bat tzibur mipnei kavadat tzibur. We don't roll the Sefer Torah during the tzibur, during the davening, during the time of laning, because of kavadat tzibur. It's a lack of kavadat tzibur to be rolling the Torah when everyone's waiting for laning. V'im ein lohem ela sefer Torah echad, but if they only have one sefer Torah, v'im tzrichim likros b'shnei inyanim, they have to read from two different inyanim. So then go them, then you can roll it. The yidacha kavadat tzibur, we would push aside the kavadat tzibur so we can do the laning. Says the Mishna Berura, if katan your gimel ein golim u'b'shabbos shekorin b'shnei sefer Torah. On a Shabbos where we were laning from two sefer Torah, yicholin liglol achas ba'od shekorin harishona. You can roll the second sefer Torah to the maftir, to the proper place while you're laning from the first one, so it's not a delay for the tzibur. You're doing the second one while you're reading from the first one. V'yoser tol kemosheno hagin ata. But better is to be knowing like we are knowing now. Shegololin u'mechabsin be'eish omra kol psuket zimra. That you roll the sefer Torah much earlier while the same psuket zimra, then you roll it and get to the right place. Kemoshe kasav darchei Moshe, like the darchei Moshe writes. The reason why it's inappropriate to be doing it in the tzibur is because of lack of kavadat tzibur. So cutting your dalid, shiu mitzapim v'domim lakach. They're going to be anticipating and quiet and waiting around for the Torah to be ready. That's inappropriate. That is a lack of kavadat tzibur. But that is if you have the option of having two sefer Torah, or you're able to do it earlier. But if you have one sefer Torah and you have the special maftir, they have to switch to another place. You don't have an eitzah, so it's b'shnei and yanus according to Ezvav. Kigon b'Shabbos or Rosh Chodesh. It's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. O b'Yom Tov mipnei maftir, or any Yom Tov where we lay in one place and we read the maftir from another place. So then we don't have an eitzah, so golim v'yadacha. So we roll the sefer Torah and we push aside the kavadat tzibur. It says in Mishna Berura, Tez Zayin Rotzalomer v'lo amrina. We don't say the mishum zeh yikra parsha shel maftir bal peh. That would be silly. We're not going to say because of kavadat tzibur. We'll read it rather by heart. Oh, from a chumash, the mistama tzibur mochel mal kvodim k'dei lakayim kriyas hamaftir kadin l'chora. The tzibur will be mochel their covet in order to read the sefer Torah the proper way, and therefore we'll push aside the kavadat tzibur and we will roll the sefer Torah to the proper place, even though they are waiting around silently. We'll stop here and continue with Hashem in the next year with Siv Daled.